Well, last week was a momentous week in coffee because the Best of Panama auction happened and the record wasn't just broken, it was absolutely shattered. And it was shattered by Hacienda La Esmeralda, and I'm joined today by Rachel Peterson of Hacienda La Esmeralda. Rachel Peterson, welcome to the coffee show.
Thank you, Kirk. It's nice to be here finally. We've been trying to do this for a while now.
Yeah, it has been a hot while. So thank you for making the time. It's 3:40. What time is it? I think it's just clicking over 4 a.m. in Australia time. But this is ideal for me because I've got no one's in the office where I'm at, so this actually works really well. So I think I missed a key detail there. So in every category that was possible to win at the Best of Panama, you won. So with the varietals category, you won using a Lorena and got a record price for the varietals as well. For the natural category, natural geisha, you won, scored 97 points with a geisha from there. And then the big boy was the washed, 98 points. What did you kind of feel like when you won all three? I imagine it's amazing to win one category, but what did it feel like to win all three?
I mean, it's kind of undescribable from our point of view because it's something that you just never think is going to happen. We've been participating in BOP for 21 years, or more than 21 years. And the categories have evolved over the years. So it used to be you participated with one coffee back in 2004, and then around 2010, we put in a naturals category and a washed category. And then at some point, I don't even remember the year, we separated the geishas from the others because it didn't feel fair for coffees that weren't geishas to compete against geishas. It's evolved. For some time, Pacamara had its own category as well, and then it went back to competing with the varietals. So having been through all of that and lived through that, and a last thing, so this year was the first year that we decided that every farm could only compete with one coffee in each category. Because last year we could compete with 2 coffees in natural, 2 coffees in geisha washed, and I think we could compete in 3 categories of varietal. 3 different coffees could go into varietals, what I mean. So we decided this year to make it fairer for everybody who's smaller and doesn't have different regions where they grow coffee, to just have everybody only submit 1 in each category. So by all means, we should have had less of a chance, and all of a sudden, that's the year that we win first place in all of them. So
yeah.
It was kind of crazy. It was. I don't know how to describe it. For us, it's joy. It's a dream. It was just wonderful.
This is kind of like the Super Bowl of coffee competitions, I guess, for at the producer side. So there's no real higher honor. So, congratulations again. Can you explain to us how the Best of Panama competition works? Because it's something that I actually feel has a lot of integrity, but just explain to someone who might be listening for the first time, how does this competition work?
I'm going to even go back to us, how we deliver the lots and all that kind of stuff and how it's audited, because, there's, just to explain the whole thing. So about 3 weeks before the competition starts, all of us have to deliver the coffee to the offices of SCAP, the Specialty Coffee Association of Panama. We have to deliver 42 kilos of each coffee that is going to compete. It's received by auditors. Well, first you have to inscribe the lots and say how many lots you're going to put in so that they're prepared. Then when you deliver them on the day that you are assigned to deliver, there will be auditors that are going to receive the coffee. They're going to measure the humidity level. They're going to look at that you brought the right amount, 42 kilos, that the humidity level is not too high, because the maximum can be 12% or 12.5%. I think 12%. And they're going to take the coffee and they're going to divide it into the 20 kilos that are going to go to the competition, the amount that's going to go to be roasted by the roasting team, and the amount that's kept for sampling at the end if you pass. So that happens about 2 to 3 weeks before the competition starts. And with the auditors, you will go with each lot into the back room where the coffee is going to be kept, and you choose an envelope, and the envelopes are by category. So I'm going to choose one for Geisha Wash, one for Geisha Natural, and one for Varietal, randomly, because those envelopes have codes inside of them. The code that you choose is going to, so you open the envelope and there's going to be closed codes. You don't get to see them at all, but there's 7 different ones of them which are attached. One goes straight into an envelope which goes into the vault, which is closed until the day of the finals, like after everything is said and done, after all the scores have come through. The rest go onto the different boxes, and they're going to have 3 different codes inside of them that they're going to open once the day of the competition, like when they start roasting. So there's going to be a code for the national jury, there's going to be a code for the semifinals, and there's going to be a code for the finals if you're lucky enough to pass into there. Some of them will only go through the national jury. And there's different codes also for the roasters. So this as a way to make sure that there is nobody who can cheat or find a way to, even the auditors do not know until the final day. Absolutely nobody knows which coffee is which. It goes into this vault inside of one of these FedEx types envelopes where you seal it, and it's signed by the president and the auditor, and you would have to tear that open to be able to actually see. If somebody opened the vault, they wouldn't be able to find the information without tearing open the envelope, and it would be very obvious to the head judge on the day of the finals. So on the day of the finals, after everything is said and done, okay, so then the coffee's delivered, right? The national jury goes for 1 week and starts cupping the coffees. We always start with varietals because it is something that, on the one hand, it calibrates us as a national jury. We haven't been cupping for a while or whatever, and we want to make sure that we're kind of on the same page, that we're within the correct range. It also is going to help everybody who's the roasting team. We want to make sure that the grinders are working correctly. We want to make sure that the people who are serving the water and putting the coffee out with the codes on them and all that kind of stuff don't make mistakes, which happen, by the way. That does happen at the very beginning. People get confused. The codes, the young girls or the assistants who are there to help with this sometimes get confused, and there's sometimes cups that have half the amount of coffee that they should have.
Just to clarify, the codes are to kind of keep them anonymous, the coffees, like keep them...
Well, it's going to be like, so the Geisha Natural is going to be a D most of the time. The Varietal is going to be an A, with the national jury, let's say A167.
Yeah.
And the Geisha Wash will be a C, and so the national jury might start with 100s, and then maybe the international is 200s, or it's something along those lines. There's different codes, and every time it passes to a different hand or group of hands, it's going to change the code. So there's no way to trace the coffee either. I mean, in the not even by the there is in the sense that you have to the accountants, so what do I want to say? The accountants? No, the auditors. Sorry, it's the word that I was looking for there. Have to choose the top 24 from the national jury to go to the international jury, the semifinals, and so. That's why the 3 codes, and then they'll go to the next code, and they'll use that code, and then the third code for the international jury. And we, as the national jury, are going to then be there for the semifinals and start randomly guessing. Okay, you remember that one that we had on the first table, the third coffee? Well, this one seems like that one. I mean, at that point, whatever the national jury does has no relevance because we've already finished our job. So our job is finished in that first week. There's 22 of us.
Wow.
Right now, there's 22 of us, yeah. And then there's a bunch of prejudges. There's a group of prejudges, people who will be, Best of Panama judge, a national jury. But we have a bunch of sort of statistics to make sure that the people are cupping around the same type of like the statistics really are, did you, in fact, identify in the national jury the winning coffees? Like that's the most important step. Did you, like, if somebody gave that Neato, for example, an 89, that wouldn't be great for their statistics, because our
so
only
kind of
job,
averaging out and sorting out outliers sort of thing.
yeah, well, there's no outliers. We work with a median, so you're either above it or below it. But let's say most of us gave it, let's say the median of that in the national jury was a 94. If you gave it an 89, you're going to be pretty far away from the median, and it's not going to be good for your own scoring or for your entering as a national judge. We have two primary objectives there. One is to identify the best coffees to pass to the international jury, and the other one is to take out coffees that should not be there. So coffees that are either out of category or coffees that we feel have, or we think have some problem with them. We're obviously removing the defective coffees as well, like past crops. We receive all kinds of coffee during that time. Fortunately, we have no idea who the coffee comes from, so it's easy to do that part of the job because you're actually objectively just blind cupping a lot of coffee too. So the national jury is going to take out a lot of coffees that have problems with them. In fact, there's a lot of coffees that are going to do well, but just don't pass all the way to the international jury as well, especially in varietals.
So fast forward to the international now. So you've got one roaster, and I believe it was Ben Putt from Monogram in Canada that roasted this year.
Yeah.
And who did an exceptional job by all accounts. And then you've got a team of international cuppers, I guess you'd say, who are scoring the coffee. So talk us through this section. So this is where I feel like people can be assured that there's a lot of integrity in the competition, because you've got a lot of people from overseas that are very experienced, and they all cup. And then again, it's fed to an average, and you work off the median score. So talk us through that part.
Yeah. So after they're gonna taste the top 24, which means 3 tables of varietals, 8 coffees on each table, 3 tables of geisha washed, and 3 tables of geisha natural. Again, we're going to start with the varietals. The varietals are the ones that are going to always suffer the most here because, our prize is, as Panama producers, are the geishas. So the varietals are going to go first, and the international judges are also sort of calibrating there. That first table can be rough on a lot of people because it's difficult not to change the way that you're scoring when you see other people scoring very differently or scoring much higher than you or much lower than you. You have to remain consistent with what you did in order to do your job correctly, but sometimes, it can be uncomfortable. So that first table does usually have to suffer a little bit. Then the international judges are going to go through the varietals. They're going to choose their top. They're not going to choose. They're going to score the varietals, right? And then the top 8 are going to go to the final varietals. Top 8 are going to go to geisha natural finals, and top 8 will go to geisha washed finals. This is random, and it's done by the auditors.
When you're going through the motions, could you tell which one was yours?
No, I could.
Even when cupping, you couldn't. You couldn't identify which, you couldn't take a wild guess, that's mine?
I knew that was my favorite. I did not think that was mine. I mean, there are a lot of profiles there that are excellent. You cupped a couple of those, maybe. I mean, the random guesses are always, that's probably a Sofia, or that's a Totomas, or that's a Nuguo, or that's a Los Cenizos. There's specific profiles for a lot of different coffees that are high elevation coffees that everybody has seen year after year. Mm-hmm. And we did believe for sure, 'cause Daniel and I talked about this, that the first places were like brother and sisterly, kind of. They came from the same farm. Because that was one thing that seemed pretty clear to everybody, to all the judges, in my opinion, and to everybody that we talked about. But there were other really good coffees. There are excellent coffees on the tables. So to say that I could identify it, I absolutely could not. There are much better cuppers than me that maybe could, but I don't know that we as a coffee industry are that far evolved as we'd like to think that we are. I've heard many people guess on, like, last year's coffee. They're like, oh, that's an Esmeralda. Far from it. No, that wasn't,
Yeah. It's not always as easy, and people aren't always
It's not.
as
The roast is different. It's not like when we're cupping it in our lab. We have, we use a probiotic sample roaster, and we have there's a very what's it called? We call it a firma de tueste in Spanish, but it means like you can taste the roast. Specifically. And so this was new.
In the lead up to the competition, did at any point in the lead up to the competition, before you enter your coffee, did you think you were onto something really special? Like, obviously you selected the plot for both the wash and the geisha. It was the same plot.
We felt that it was outstanding. The geisha wash, we were like, from the very first time, we were like, oh my gosh, yes, this is definitely it. I think we start out the year, all through January, February, March, April, we had to turn in the coffee in May. Through May, we're going to be cupping, and the first thing that we're going to always think about is this the best Panama coffee? Or is this an Esmeralda auction coffee as well? But that one specifically, we knew from the elevation. The Neato last year was the best in our private auction, but we only had 10 kilos of it, so we couldn't put into the best Panama. This year, the higher elevation coffees produced more. So we actually had 2 Neato lots of natural that we could choose from, only one of the washed. And we had so much of it that we were able to sort by size as well. Usually you have your best lot. The 42 kilos doesn't sound like a lot, but it is for these very high elevation coffees. And we had enough to sort out by screen size, which I think made a huge difference here as well. Usually we'll leave in the small, the pea berry size, the Maya 15, and we'll take out only the very large ones. This year we were able to keep it all within the range of a screen size that I think helped enormously for the roasting and for the cupping. So
the difference that would make when roasting is it's all more or less the same density, so it's easier to get a good cup profile. So not a bad move, Rachel. Not a bad move.
Yeah, I can't take the credit for that. Credit for that goes to Daniel and to Aranza, who's our processing and beneficio manager. So
can I ask, what makes Neato so special? Why is Neato this part of the farm that was so great? Because you've got the washed and the natural effectively coming from the same plot of the farm. Why is that so special?
Well, part of it has to do with the elevation. That above 2,000 meters is high elevation coffee. Elevation plays a key role, in my opinion, in the flavor of coffees. But we had a 2,200 meter coffee from another farm, and still we preferred to put in the Neato because, I don't know, Cañas Verdes is a region that does very well in coffee flavors, and I think majorly because it's very stressed during the dry season. So this is an area that doesn't rain generally in December, January, February. Starts raining maybe in March. And that stress, I think, goes into the fruit being being a sweeter, rounder, a more evenly matured flavor profile. I don't really know specifically, but I loved Neato last year and I love Neato this year. I also love Tumaco, which is from that same farm. Montañas from that same farm. The other farm there, I'm going to digress. So I don't want to keep. I'll start talking about random things if you let me. So.
One thing I will ask you again about Neato is I'm a massive Pokemon fan, right? So as you may have learnt over the last few days, like I grew up on that stuff. Can we start calling these Neato King and Neato Queen? Like, can we?
We're on board with that. We're on board for sure.
Yeah. Okay, because I think Neato King, suits the natural profile. Neato Queen suits the wash. They're both excellent Pokemon. If you're doing a playthrough, you can have them in your team, and they've got great coverage. They can defeat a lot of teams. But like, what's it been like in the days after the auction? Because I can imagine your phone has just gone absolutely bananas, and then you'd be all over the news. You're the talk of the coffee industry. What's it been like post-auction?
It's been a roller coaster, I'm going to be honest about that. I mean, it was super high at the beginning. We were kind of like, oh, wow, this is what's happening. And because I was a little stressed, I'm going to be honest. You asked me, actually, to be honest, in my reaction, I was stressed about your kind of predictions about that, about 30,000. And Cole had put some sort of a prediction. Cole Terode from Canada had put some sort of a prediction that was like $25,000 a kilo. I was thinking to myself, what are these people thinking? Like, we're probably not even going to break the previous record, and like all these expectations are out there. So we were super anxious going into the auction, and the day of the auction, it started at 6 p.m. Panama time. We were invited to like a auction watch party, which we do every year. But the auction watch party was going to start at 7. So I wrote to the guy, I'm like, but the auction starts at 6. He's like, yeah, but it's going to be boring for the first hour. And I'm like, okay. Well, obviously I was going to watch it. So I'm at home and I start watching it, because the actual auction itself, it's 1 hour until the extended bidding starts. And within 5 minutes, the coffee had broken the previous year's record. And so it was wild. It was really, really, really wild to see that happen, and it was exciting. It was a relief, to be honest. After all your predictions, I was like, at least we did break the previous year's record. I was not expecting at all for it to go so high.
Can I give you my justification? Because I don't think I've spoken to you about this previously, but like I have a very clear reasoning for why I said that. And the first one being is that, well, obviously it's got 98 points, so you're going to do great. Second is that it was washed. So I think washed coffee at that level just has it's the most sought after. And so I thought that was one of the big reasons. Number 3, I thought the brand of Esmeralda is the strongest brand of any coffee farm in all of coffee, because you introduced geisha to Panama and kind of popularized it around the world, and then I think the final one is like just the demand for coffee has never been higher. So whether you're at the farm level, whether you're at the cafe, roaster, all throughout the world, coffee's never been more popular or sought after than it is right now. And I thought to myself, you base that off what the previous price was last year. And that wasn't at the Best of Panama, by the way. That was at the Elita private auction where, they can submit lots that aren't as big. And so for all those reasons, I just thought to myself that there is no way that this is under $20,000. I was probably being a bit ambitious with 30,000, but I sat there and I broke it down to myself and I thought, I think that's a very real chance of happening.
I didn't, and so I was super surprised when it actually did happen. I didn't think that it would. I really didn't at all. I even thought, well, because to me the real scorekeeper here is the BOP, because there's a consistency in the size that's being auctioned. So it's not the same to have 3 or 5 kilos at some price. I'm going to give you a specific example of that. We have 800 grams in one of our auction lots for the private auction. It's not the same to pay $30,000 or $35,000. Let's say somebody paid $35,000 for 800 grams. When you multiply that, it's not the same as 20 kilos. I mean, so apples and apples here. So to me, the record breaking was still the 10,013 of Elida of last year, because there were 20 kilos of that. And before that, I think Mugua at one time had the highest, and he had more coffee. I don't remember if we had already moved from 100 pounds to 42 kilos or, But every year it's gone down in Best of Panama, the size, not every year. Last year and this year it was the same, but years before it was 25 kilos and then it was 100 pounds before that. So yes, absolutely acknowledge that Lamastos did a great job with their auction, but if you look at it in terms of what the buyer is going to put out, there's a big difference between 3 kilos and 20 kilos.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, where you're heading into a season where more of these individual auctions are about to happen in Panama. And however unlikely, there's a chance that this record's broken again. You know, like you look at, you mentioned Elita. They might have had a lot they didn't submit to the best of Panama. Maybe Longboard Coffee. Don't get me wrong. I want you to stay in this for another couple of years, but but there's no guarantee that it's not broken again.
Right. No, for sure. Absolutely. But again, I would go back to being careful about comparing 1 kilo of coffee being sold at, I don't know, $50,000 a kilo versus 20 kilos being sold at $30,000 a kilo.
It seems like it seems like there's a large degree of camaraderie among the Panama producers. And I interviewed Kai Jansen a few months ago, and I asked him about the word panadrama.
I heard that.
Is there panadrama between coffee producers?
There's panadrama all the time.
But
we just love it. Yeah, we have all sorts of arguments about all sorts of different things and all sorts of disagreements, but then we all come back together again. And the difference, I think, one of the big differences between Panama and other origins is that we all kind of grew up together. So, I went to school with Graciano Cruz's sister, with Wilfred Lamastos' brother, everybody. Ricardo Coiner's sister was in my same class. All of us know each other growing up, so it is kind of like Kai said, we're like, a family, and we do fight, and families fight too. So, but then we get back, and then we get all excited about some other new thing, and we forget the drama.
I like that. And it's not really like Panama was just excellent from day one, right? I feel like collectively you've had to build. Oh yeah. And you've done a lot of things really well. So yeah, starting with planting geisha, and then I think one of the things that you do particularly well is marketing your coffee. So it's not like you just have the 6 scores and everyone comes to you and everything's all Gucci. You're actively traveling to countries, going to different competitions, going to trade shows, marketing your coffee, getting people tasting, connecting with communities. So it feels like there's been a lot of hard work done over the last 20 years. Talk us through some of that.
Well, for sure. In 2004, when we first won that BOP with Geisha, we got super excited because $21 a pound, it was $21 a pound back then, was like a earth-shattering price. And I know that sounds crazy, but it was sort of like right now.
So it's like $45 a kilo, yeah.
But back then, when coffee was at $1.50 or whatever, and the highest price I think was Ada Batley from El Salvador COE had been $14 a pound back then. And so it was it kind of the travel was the same, like going through, like trying to figure out what was going on in coffee and going out, what are we going to do with this product now, and what should we price it at? And so I went and knocked on a lot of doors, and SCAP also was very supportive of that. And as other producers started to have geisha as well, we marketed together, and it helped us to have some momentum and well, we all know our product like a lot. We cup geisha all the time. We know what we like, at least. We know what we think a good Panama geisha is, and we go out and market that. And doing it together makes it easier. And, it's one thing to all of a sudden have something wonderful, but I was reading something the other day about how, like, if you splash water on a rock, nothing happens. But if a drop of water falls, year after year, it's going to make a hole in the rock. And I feel like that's what we have tried to do, to be consistent, to make everybody know, yeah, we're here. We're not going to be gone tomorrow. If you invest in us and in what we're trying to do, we'll work together. And that's been part of what I've been trying to do as well over the last 21 years. It's been what I've mainly tried to do, is to try and establish relationships with clients and make sure that what they receive from me is something that I believe in. And I love coffee. I loved coffee from day one. It's something that I enjoy doing, so that it works that way. Because if you're excited about what you do, you can also, other people can get excited about it.
I think it was either it might have been, were you at Brazil at the World Brewers Cup in 2018? Belo Horizonte? Okay, I wasn't there. But I'm trying to recall the moment that I first saw you at a trade show, and I was like, holy shit, it's Rachel from Esmeralda. Because I've always been like a bit of a coffee nerd. Like, I've always kind of documented the history of coffee at these auctions and, you know, at the World Barista Championship and stuff like that. Like, I've got a really good memory for all of these things. So, but I can't remember where it was. Maybe it was at Melbourne 2022 that I first saw you.
I was there for sure. Yeah. I was there.
But I remember, seeing you, and then, you know, I bumped into you at Dubai earlier in the year, and you were traveling with your daughter, and so you get around the place.
I do, yeah. I make a huge effort in showing up at as much as I can, because I also think that's important. You have to be there. You have to show up. You have to be at these events, I think. You were mentioning, I watched your podcast last night about other producers and being able to do the same, and I completely agree with your point of view on that. I would say, though, that people have to keep showing up. If you don't show up, again, people who are buying from you or whatever cannot trust that relationship will continue to go forward, and that's important.
Well, I think this is something that people should probably be aware of, is that there are these other spectacular farms. It's not like Panama is the only coffee producing country that produces these exceptional coffees. I think Bolivia,
Ethiopia. I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah. There's you got certain parts of Ethiopia. So like Geisha Village is probably one of the biggest organized single estate farms. Then I think there's Aloe coffee, and there's more coming up. I think some of those coffees in Bolivia, the wash geishas in Bolivia, are exceptional.
Like Takeshi, I mean, they've always done super well, and I agree. I agree entirely with what you were saying there, for sure.
Do you think this year was like a particularly special harvest? Because I spoke to, I mean, obviously, because you produced a 98-point coffee, but I spoke to Justin from Longboard Coffee, and he was saying that it was just an exceptional harvest. You know, it just year on year, you know, things just worked quite well. What can you say to that?
I think that it was an exceptional harvest in the high elevation coffees because the climate has allowed that. Because if coffee is way too cold at 2,000 or 2,200 meters, it's going to have a sort of greenish and even oniony kind of flavor to it, which the coffee did not have. So yes, it was a very good harvest for high elevation coffees. The lower elevation coffees did not do that great. A lot of our lower elevation, and I'm not talking about 1,000 meters. I'm talking about 1,600 or 1,500 meter coffees. Just, there was so much rain in December in some areas. It just fell off the trees, and it was kind of messy. So there was a little of both. It depends on where you're at or where you were located, how good it could be. But I think it was a great year for high elevation coffees. Really, really good.
I'd like to ask you about the business that bought your coffee, so Julith in Dubai. Have you spoken with them since the auction?
Sure. Yeah. The day after the auction, I think, I had M. Cultivo set us up, and we had a little podcast with them, and we met each other because I had never met them before. And in fact, they already paid for the coffee, and they will be coming to pick it up within the next 10 days. So they'll come to the farm, and I will actually, the person who I spoke to, the barista, is not going to be able to come until January. I'm sorry, the name just escaped from me.
Cyprian? Is it Cyprian?
Sirkan?
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry. I can't right now remember his name, but he's a barista from Turkey who has competed a couple of times, and he was who I met. I know it's a cafe that's owned by, not only him, by a group, but it was great to meet him, talk to him. They're very passionate. I understand very well the move. I know that it was, let's say it was a little divisive the way that went down, but I have always known auctions to be, they're a marketing tool. That's what auctions are, and they're not meant to establish a price, or they're not meant for anything else than to give a prize or appreciate certain exceptional small amounts of exceptional coffees. That's what auctions are, and I understand what they did, and it makes all the sense in the world to me that if you're a coffee shop, you're opening up, and you want to make a splash, that's a great way, in my opinion, to do it. It's odd because people can market in different ways. People can market through influencers, for example, and they'll pay millions if we're talking about George Clooney and Nestle or something like that. But so I think that it's important to sort of just understand that is what it is. And so is JD in China. That's a first time a Fortune 500 company has bought, and they have specific plans of what they're going to do with this coffee, and it's to create, some sort of a impulse for the coffee or for the business.
Well, I think it's interesting to transition to this discussion because it's not like, obviously, I'd like to say like 95% of the coffee industry has celebrated what's gone on in the last week. But there's some people that have been very critical, their emotions ranging from criticism to, frankly, disgust. So
I've seen it.
Yeah. So, and you shouldn't feel bad about it in any way, but I think it's a good discussion. And I think let's talk about the buyer. So, I mean, whoever it is, I don't really know, and you should, and you're obviously not going to give up their personal information, but if they have the money and they're willing to pay, and it's not like this is pre-arranged, pre-auction, like who cares? Like if they went and bought a Ferrari privately, no one would know.
No one would they care. It was just because it went to a producer, which is really strange because we are a coffee industry. So it's odd that people would get so upset that.
But I think some of those people have this perception that all of you Panama producers are just filthy rich millionaires. And look, I don't know whether you are or not, but it's I can't imagine you are. And you've got a lot of bills to pay, and to have multiple farms running is quite costly. So what do you kind of say to all of that? And my final thing that I'll say that I forgot to admit is that I think a lot of people see this as something that you Panama producers can achieve, but other producers in other coffee producing countries that can't get the investment as easily, let's just say, might not be able to achieve.
Look, I'm going to go back to 21 years ago. So SCAP set up the Best of Panama because we could literally not afford the Cup of Excellence, which was $125,000 back then, and we ran the Best of Panama for less than $50,000 back then. We would invite the judges, and we had a small area where we did the cuppings, and then we grew. Little by little, we grew. For example, of that money, 30% of that will stay back in SCAP because we need administrative costs. We have offices to rent. We have to pay for the next Best of Panama. Plus, we have the World of Coffee coming to Panama next year, so 6%. So normally around 24 to 25% stays back for administrative and for everything that we need for the next year from the auction. But this year, also another 6% will be sort of a loan for the World of Coffee to fund the World of Coffee. And if the World of Coffee goes well, then we get that 6% back again. But we have worked as an association together for 21 years. As I said, we have disagreements, but we all are always looking for what is the best for Panama coffee. And I think that makes a huge difference. If you're not only thinking about what's best for you, but you're thinking about what's best for everybody in Panama in coffee, that's what we have tried to do. And we have done the best that we can in that sense. And
it does seem like there's a large sense of altruism among you producers.
We hold ourselves up to a standard amongst each other too. We're very clear and transparent. We meet all the time. We did the rules and regulations during COVID where we spent hours and hours, 15 of us, including everybody that you might know in Panama Coffee, deciding what the actual rules of this competition were, and putting out the points, because we had it was sort of casual. It wasn't all that well written out. We spent during that year of staying at home, we spent it entirely on Zoom figuring out the rules. It's important to us, so it's something that we spend a lot of time with. And I don't have a yacht. I don't have a condo in Miami. I don't have anything except my house in Panama. I'm not saying that I'm poor me, not at all. But it's not like that. It's not. We still work. I have my daughter who is coming here to UC Davis, like we talked about, and she got herself a scholarship too, and that's great. So things cost for everybody, and it's, everybody needs to make a living.
So you've obviously got a big team, or I don't know the size of your team, but you've got a team of people that work on your farm, in the mill, processing and all that sort of stuff. They did an exceptional job this year by all accounts. We got a bonus coming for them, or for
no, we absolutely do. We haven't discussed regarding because to be honest, a lot of things happened, and so we had somebody, one of my mom's sisters passed just the day before yesterday. Sorry.
Sorry.
So my parents were up in the U.S. and one of my brothers went up with them because she was put into hospice, and so we haven't really discussed it as a family, which is what we will do. But already, okay, we have absolutely always believed that we have to work with the people, and so most of the harvesters in Panama come from an area which is kind of like, it's called La Comarca, but it's an area that the government gave to the originaries to live and farm, and it's their land, and they come down for 3 months during the year, and they harvest for us. So we set up we've been doing this for many years. We want the same people to come back because we've, invested in teaching them what we would like, how we want it to be harvested. And they do come back, and there is a lot associated with that. So at the farm itself, we give scholarships from kindergarten through university to all of the employees or the kids of the employees, as long as they're not failing. They don't have to have a great grade point average, but failing, I think you can fail one subject, because it's important to keep in mind that they don't come from the places where they had the most opportunities to learn in the first place. So we have scholarships. We have for the harvesters themselves, we have a bonus as soon as they leave at the end of the harvest, which will be like 20 to 25% of what they earned. And then we will give them another bonus in 3 months later, because that is the worst time for them. They've already spent the money that they earned during the harvest. They don't have a lot of money up there. So we'll go to the base of the area of La Comarca, and we'll let them know on the radio. They know when to come down and get that second bonus. This year, I'm sure we'll do something super special, but we haven't, as a family, had the moment yet to discuss that. We support all schools around the area. We have a lot of programs for food to make sure that they eat. So the harvesters receive rice and some sort of a protein, sardines or beans or something like that, oil, to make sure that in addition to the money, there is actual food in the house for them. We have social centers for the kids to be able to come and stay at and have 2 meals, at least 2 warm meals a day, pregnant mothers, nursing mothers, during the time that their parents are harvesting. We have a lot of interest in the social aspect, and we do have a lot of interest in them growing and being able to better themselves, even at our cost, because eventually, obviously, there will not be that many harvesters in Panama like there aren't in Central America countries right now, because people are leaving. So, but it's important to have people's dignity and well-being ahead of anything else. So
yeah, well, and I think it's good, and I think there was a lot of criticism, but there was also a lot of just mud thrown at you in the last week. I don't think you should pay attention to it. It is a good discussion to have, and I feel like it was important to ask. I mean, the nature of this podcast is I ruthlessly pursued it. You know, I asked you so many times. You know, there's a lot of logistics where we're going back and forth to make it happen. And obviously, there's a complication of your daughter moving and stuff like that. But you're a guest on my show. But so you didn't have to answer that, and I think it's good that you did. And you know, and kind of anyone can listen to that and take away what they will now. But I want to get back to
anybody can also just visit our website, and there's a lot of information there that I have not that they could find if they wanted to.
Yeah. So where to next? So like I often feel like sometimes the chase is better than the reward, because I like when for example, when I finished university, I did my last exam and I walked out of there and I thought to myself in the lead up to the exam, like, oh my God, it's going to be so good when I'm free. But I got out of there and I went, what now? You know, and that always happens to me whenever I'm looking forward to something and I get it. Like I always just think, what now? So are you the same or?
Well, there's a part of the family who's, like even my dad is kind of like, should we continue? I mean, there's nowhere to go up from here, but I'm sure that we will. I know him, my brother and myself, like, we just start all over again. Next year's just a brand new year and you start from zero again. And you just have to keep going and keep trying and keep seeing what happens next. I think that this is, you know, a matter of persistence and trying to always keep things moving. It's a business, and you got to keep trying to find new things to do, keep trying to innovate, keep trying to find ways to do things differently, better, and it's a constantly evolving industry that we're in.
How do producers in Panama evolve? So, like, I think I was reading that some of these lots that you processed were mechanically dried, or you know, in a temperature controlled environment during the processing. How do you get to walk us through some of that, and how do you evolve as producers with that sort of stuff?
Well, imagine in 2004, the coffee that we won with was patio dried. So then we moved on to, you know, elevated African style raised beds. And then we put sort of, plastic over it so it wouldn't get rained on, and made some sort of kind of wind tunnel things where it could dry without us being so exposed to the elements. And that's quite nice. That's a very traditional style still, but we also have our climate control room. We have a cold fermentation room where we do cold anaerobics, and we do cold low temperature anaerobics and low temperature fermentations for washed coffee, which is what that washed was. It was a low temperature fermentation, and then it was put in a climate control room where we can control the temperature, we can control the humidity to a certain extent, right? Not entirely. And we can control the airflow. So yes, it's all sort of stuff that we have actually been able to do because of this persistence and having trying to put out the same quality every year. And then, you know, if you get enough of a return, you can set in or install systems like that.
And I imagine you'll be able to, going forward from here, there's so much yet to discover in coffee. That's kind of what excites me about it, is that we're an industry kind of in our infancy. There's the exciting...
Like this UC Davis thing, they're doing an undergrad school thing, but there's some math on this blackboard over here that I could show it to you. It means nothing to me, but it is somebody who is actually studying different parts of... I mean, wine has been studying their stuff forever and ever. I know that you said that you don't like to compare coffee to wine because you don't want it only to be for the ultra rich, but honestly, wine has been studying this for the longest time. They actually really know very well what they're doing because they have studied it. They've been able to fund that research as well, and I think that's, you know, hopefully
where we will head with coffee. And you mentioned the University of California Davis Coffee Research Center. There's also the University of Oregon has a program.
Right, exactly.
Well,
yes, and that's an excellent program. Yeah.
And that's headed by Dr. Christopher Hendon, who we're very lucky to have in coffee, and we'll be trying to get on this podcast as well.
Yes.
These things just excite me. I'm actually this just popped into my brain. I'm really keen to ask you about something that I find quite fascinating, and that is perma coffee. Have you heard of perma coffee? So perma coffee is like it was started by a Danish barista who is an agronomist who specializes in fruit
Poma.
cultivation.
I've definitely heard of Poma.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't.
Poma.
Your Australian accent gave me a little Perma. I thought you said there was an
Get
R
out,
in there. No, yeah, I definitely have heard of Poma. Yes, and I have met with Rasmus and I've spoken to him about. Yeah, no, that's insanely intriguing to me that you can control everything.
Yeah, well, so just to enlighten the listener, so basically what they do in Denmark is they have a greenhouse where they can mimic coffee growing conditions and basically produce varieties like geisha at exceptional quality. And Rachel, it is exceptional. You would agree?
I tried it. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of that as a Panama producer? Because I can imagine there's some people in Panama that think this is an abomination, it's synthetic, but you try it and it's like, good gosh.
No, I don't think anybody thinks it's an abomination. It just seems like a reach to be able to do something like that because obviously it's all a greenhouse to be able to. So the cost of something like that has got to be huge. I didn't really ask about that, but I can imagine having something like that in Europe. In a greenhouse and having to control, during the freezing winters where obviously coffee will die, having to control the temperature and having to control everything that's happening. It's huge, but it's also so exciting to have a place where you can see if you change the temperature to this amount or if you add this to the soil, exactly what is going to happen because it is so controlled. And I think that is the first step of hopefully many different ways of studying how microorganisms, how that affects the flavors of coffee, what we can do with that information. Because right now we're sort of guessing. We add sometimes we've added the yeast from Lal Cafe we did for a couple of years. We have our own native yeast now too that sometimes we add, but we don't really know precisely why or how it's affecting it. And it would be great to have more studies on that.
Yeah, the work he's doing is absolutely seminal. I think that, we'll know the outcomes of some of that stuff years from now. But one thing he does really interesting that I found, I was talking to him the other day. So I actually spoke to him about something. He was on the phone. He was in a paddock in the middle of Costa Rica doing some experiments with Volcan Azul. And, so they actually cycle their harvests. So because they've got these mimicking conditions, they planted them at different times. So they effectively get a harvest every 3 months. And it's like, man, the level these people are operating at.
That's in Costa Rica? Or in Copenhagen?
Well, he consults in Costa Rica, but I'm talking about Copenhagen, where he'll
every 3 months.
Every 3 months. So he's just planted them at different times. And because you can get, I believe, high yields because, you're managing the conditions, he'll literally get harvests every 3 months. So, which is just, the level that these people are working on. He's an icon in coffee, if you ask me. He's someone that will all be,
remembering, for sure.
Yeah, for a long time to come.
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges that you face now, previously, and into the future as Panama coffee producers? Because I spoke to Kai Jansen a few months ago, and it's not always been easy. Not every year is easy, not every harvest is easy. Panama was of course affected by Hurricane Eta a few years ago. Give us some of the challenges that you face as Panama coffee producers that people might not be aware of.
Well, the biggest challenge that we had this year was the excessive amount of rain that we had. And so it rained in months when it's not supposed to be raining. It rained in, December, Christmas Day it was raining, which is insane. Usually it stops raining at the end of November. A lot of our coffee fell onto the ground and was gone. Diseases then come out, and then you can't spray because if you spray, the coffee's, you're going to be harvesting soon. And so that creates a mess around funguses and all that kind of stuff. So the warmer temperatures, again, they can be, good and bad. They were super bad for the lower elevation coffees or the mid elevation coffees, whatever you want to call that. But they were good for the higher elevation coffees because we had super high yields in the 2000 and above. We have this one farm in Alvelo, and it's got 2,200 meters, and it produced a lot of coffee this year, which to me is, and that coffee, so Neato is 13 years old. And that coffee from Alvelo, El Pinto, is 11 years old, and I'm hoping to see that maybe in the next 2 years, if it also evolves into being more like Neato. But that's a lot of years for you to wait for something to see how it tastes or to produce coffee. It's not everybody that can do it, and we are, in that sense, we have, Panamanian coffee producers, because of Geisha, we can wait and keep hoping. We have one lot, Buenos Aires, we almost went out of it. We almost got rid of it because it just didn't produce for years and years and years, and now people just absolutely love it, and it finally did start producing. I think that the biggest problem that we have right now is not knowing how the weather is going to behave or how to get ahead of whatever the weather is going to bring. We, fortunately, right now still have, we have people that are willing to come and pick the coffees and do that, where in north of us, or let's say from Costa Rica up, there's a lot of migration going on, and there's a lot of problems for people to get harvesters.
What are some instances of technology that you use on farm that we might not know about? Because I was speaking to someone Lucy Ward, the day before yesterday, and basically, I think there's so much technology that will be available to coffee farmers in the near future, or already currently is. What are some things that you do on farm that probably people don't know about or you plan to do?
I do think that we're eventually going to have to be working with drones. I think that all the coffee industry is eventually have to have it. I mean, it seems like a logical thing that's going to happen at some point. But what we're doing right now, we just try and experiment. We do studies with the Panamanian Institutes for Agriculture, or different associations that work with soils, and to see exactly what is going on in the soil and what is going on with the microorganisms around our coffee that makes it so really, really special. So that is, but we don't have a lot of techie stuff going on, if that's where your question is going. We really don't have a lot of anything that's ultra techie because we've got so small, we're very small. The amount of coffee that we produce in Panama has never even been on the map, ever. Like in 2004 when I started, I remember knocking door to door with roasters and roasters being like, Panama produces coffee? I mean, it was, it wasn't a thing. Like people didn't know that Panama produced coffee. Now they do.
Yeah, well, I just see the future of coffee at the farm level being tech driven. So, I mean, there's obviously an issue with young people not wanting to work on coffee farms in countries like Indonesia and Colombia. And then, so there's, and, for a variety of reasons, and perhaps that affects you. You were just saying it was affecting some farms in Costa Rica at the moment. So I think there'll be a lot of technology used in the future, and it's not just for, say, harvesting coffee, but there's drones that can scan crops and detect abnormalities that you can go and address and all these sorts of things. So it'll influence coffee farms in a lot of ways, and hopefully over the years, Rachel, we can have another interview again and check back in on that. I think that's really exciting for me. What are some outrageous stories you can tell me about coffee, like that you've had being a coffee farmer? So I'll give you an example of the absurdity. I'll tell you one of my own first. So a few years ago, I worked for St. Ali Coffee in Melbourne, and one day while I was there, I got called on my day off, and it was the owner, Salvatore, who just said, Kirk, you need to come to St. Ali right now. And mind you, I never get a call from this guy. He said, you need to be at St. Ali now. Where are you? I'll get you an Uber, whatever. So I arrived there, and there's a column of black Mercedes vans out the front. And I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting. This is a no parking zone. And I walk in, there's a private room there, and I get sat down. There's all these like James Bond villain looking guys that are just really buff, and they've got handguns, right? They've got handguns in these holsters. And I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? I thought they were police. And I had been out partying the night before, so I was like, oh boy, this could go anywhere. And then Salvatore said, Kirk, this is such and such and such, His Majesty of country I won't say. And it was a royal family member from a country in the Middle East. And then my mind's in overdrive, and I'm like, what the hell is going on right now? Is this punked? Is Ashton Kutcher about to jump out from the corner? Anyway, so this gentleman wanted to basically have a coffee experience when he was in Melbourne. And so he booked out an entire section of the cafe that we had to close off, because at the time I had a stash of frozen coffee. I was one of the first people in Melbourne that would freeze, exceptional lots of coffee. And so for hours, I just had to make this guy whatever he wanted, and his family. They paid an obscene amount, and I think it's still the craziest coffee story I had to date. I was terrified because I was at the start because again, these guys, I thought they were police, and it was just crazy. Have you got an equivalent story? I bet you have.
I am
selling your coffee for $30,000 a kilo is one of them, but give us another.
I'm sorry to say, I think that is the most outrageous coffee story that I could. I mean, I know it doesn't seem like it now, but going back to 2004, that was also considered like such an outrageous thing, and people were on. We didn't have all of the Instagram, or I guess we had Facebook, but people were on Roasters forums, and that was where we would discuss this kind of stuff, and it was considered the most outrageous thing in the world in 2004. So that, to me, is always still going to be my memory. I know that it's because I've been around for a while in coffee now, but to me, 2004, it was even more outrageous than now. And now, I guess, yes, it's considered outrageous, but I think that all of us do understand a little bit about how it is about, getting your company ahead and marketing for your coffee. And so I think over the years we've evolved in auctions to understand that auctions are about that. Most of us understand that auctions just are really about giving a premium price for something that you want to. I have a semi-outrageous, not really an outrageous, but
give it to me. Come on.
No, it's not really so outrageous, but I don't know. You might have been around in 2007. In 2007 we were at the auction, and we were running our own. It was the Best of Panama auction, and Malcolm Stone, who was doing the Best of Panama auctions then, he was very, very careful about what he did. He was very serious about making sure that bidders were serious and that he wasn't being hacked and all that kind of stuff. He had stopped the auction in 2004 because he was certain we were being hacked after $10 a pound. But in 2007, so we get up to $99 a pound, and the system falls apart because nobody ever thought that coffee would be sold for over $100 a pound. So that was kind of an outrageous thing, that the whole thing just paralyzed. The auction stopped, and then he had to start calling them on the phone. Okay, do you want to keep bidding this and that? And then they redid all auction sites so that they could include over $100 a pound bids.
It didn't have capacity to
didn't have capacity. After $99, it was done because they just never thought that it would go above $99 a pound.
Wow.
So,
how far we've come. It would be like Y2K for that computer if it had this year's
right,
number.
exactly.
It would just discombobulate. I think we coordinated a lot to make this coffee podcast happen. I'm pretty obsessed, with doing this. Again, I woke up at like 2:30 a.m. this morning to make this happen.
That's insane. I can't believe that's time that you're up and doing this. I saw like, what time is it in Melbourne? I'm like, no way. That's why I was like, are you sure this is a good time for you? But thank you for accommodating too.
No. Well, I just want people to know about me how obsessed I am with giving them a good podcast. And I've got my own business, and I've actually got an interview to do today, and I'm making some content. I can't believe we haven't spoken about this yet, but I'm making some content about the coffees. All three of your winners. So
yes,
and I actually haven't tried any of them yet. So I got them.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I haven't. So I am so excited. Like I've just been.
Oh, cool.
When the DHL package was coming, it almost got destroyed in customs, by the way.
Yeah.
And then we luckily got some certification and got it cleared. And then I was just sitting there waiting for the DHL guy, and then kindly Jerome from Nucleus roasted the coffee for me on the weekend, and my fee to him was I gave him a dose of each coffee. So, I mean, it worked out. And then, so today I get to make some content brewing it. My plan is to just have one of each myself and just sit in a room quietly and just enjoy the moment. But
happy for you. That sounds like a great plan.
I actually chewed one of each bean, which is not something I do often, but Jerome was doing, and
I've done that many times. That is a very good indicator, actually, in my opinion, about what's going to come.
Well, the Lorena was like a fruit bomb. I thought it was just like I tried that, and I was like, "Damn, this tastes like grape candy." When I just chewed the roasted coffee bean.
I am going to do a warning here. Very high elevation coffees are very hard to roast so we did a lot of trials originally with the Stronghold with high elevation coffees to make sure that they were cracking and that they were, sorry, their light goes off in here, and that everything was working out well before, because high elevation coffees have the tendency to not crack, and if they don't crack or you don't hear the crack, you might not be roasting them correctly. Then they're going to taste cereally, they're going to taste grainy. We recently had an event at the farm where we had the two Neatos. I shouldn't say the winning BOPs because they're not the winning BOPs, but what we have left over, Neato 7 natural and the Neato 7 wash, and the Laurina, which was a bank. The Laurina was insanely good. And I was like, what? Wait, what? We're supposed to be like showing these people, but it's the roasts sometimes. The roast at the BOP was just outstanding by no matter how you look at it. And thanks, Ben, for that, because he practiced a lot with different coffees, making sure that he could roast well high elevation coffees. So I hope that the coffee is well roasted. Otherwise, maybe you need to let it rest for a little bit. I'm not really sure. And I'm glad that the Laurina is spectacular, but again, a caveat on very high elevation coffees, very hard to roast.
Well, I backed Jerome, and he said, try it today. So this is day 6 after it being roasted. And, and off an electric roaster. I'm not a roaster, but he seems to think today it's going to be peaking. So
I hope so.
It's been in like a suitcase, and I don't let anyone near it. But yeah, I chewed that one. It tasted like grape candy. I chewed the natural, and that was just like, jasmine and citrus. But then I chewed the washed, and it just had this lingering flavor of like citrus.
It's delicious.
This is an unextracted coffee bean, so I thought that was pretty extraordinary. What's it like for you when people use your coffee in competition? I've used Esmeralda and Brewers Cup before and done quite well. What's it like when you see people using your coffee in comp?
Oh, I love to watch people use our coffee in competition, obviously. It's a huge honor for us when people do it and they mention us. It's also, though, out of our hands what really happens. Like, I understand very well the Best of Panama competition, how the national jury works, how the international jury works, and what kind of a coffee will do well in that competition. I know that because I've been doing this for so long. I know that it has to be like an aromatic bomb at the beginning, and when you're first go by smelling it, I know that it has to have a pleasant flavor, and that it has to. We cup until like 50 minutes. At 50 minutes, when it's stone cold, it has to be sweet. It still has to have all the flavor attributes, or some different, not the same ones, but it has to have flavor attributes still in the cup. I understand the Best Panama coffee competition, but other competitions are harder for me to understand because the window of time that the people have to show the coffee it's so small that I don't know how you choose the coffee to do that, or how are you going to know that in that specific 10 minutes or whatever it is, the coffee is going to be exactly the way you want it to taste for the judges. So to me, that's like a little confusing how you can do it both in Brewers Cup and in Barista competition. It seems very hard to me. I mean, at the end of the day, really, it's about the barista and the brewer, right? It is not so much about the coffee as it is about the barista and the brewer. So, and I'm always like happy to help, happy to offer. People ask me for competition coffees. I'm like, I don't have competition coffees. And the coffees that work well in the Best of Panama are not necessarily going to work well in those competitions because of what I just mentioned. They don't need it to be like super sweet at 50 minutes. They don't need that. They need different things. So it's hard for me when the people ask me what to offer, and I just send samples and let them choose because I think everybody knows what they like, and maybe if you go with what you love, you'll do better than me giving you any recommendation on stuff. I'm still only going to give you recommendations of things that I think are going to work well, but always let it better. Yeah.
Having this discussion is just getting me more and more, excited to try a coffee. My goodness. My cafe is just down the road, so I made myself a cold brew before I came on air. I'm so looking forward to that. Let's talk about how this podcast came together, because I think this is a bit of an interesting story. Again, so like, so the day after the auction finished, you had to travel to California because your daughter will be attending the University of California, Davis. Sorry if I'm disclosing too much information. And so you've traveled with her to help her get set up so that she can attend school. So is it kind of like a bittersweet feeling for you because you've just had, this probably the highest achievement that you've achieved in coffee, and then, the next day you have to go and move your daughter. So has it been? It
was. I mean, I'm heartbroken that I'm going to lose her for 2 years because she's been working with me for the last 3 years. And like, there is nobody better than her to choose coffees, to help me identify flavor attributes, to help me look at different markets, to go with me to the shows. But I mean, this is important. And so I am happy to be here. Like, I'm sad that she's leaving me, right, for 2 years, that she's going to be, I mean, I shouldn't say that. She's obviously an adult and she's probably going to get married or get a partner or whatever at some point. But I have relied on her heavily on these last 3 years. So it's going to be, in terms of work, difficult for me to, these next couple of years. But I'm here. I'm trying to help her get set up because she was starting yesterday. She started her first day, and the apartment had nothing in it, and so we had to sort of come up and figure out a bed for her to sleep on and sheets and just small things like that. Like you need plates and you need maybe a desk or something, And that's what we've been doing. But I'm happy to be here. I am.
What's she going to be studying?
She is getting an MBA in sustainable agriculture, so that's what she's going to be studying. She's it's called the STEM or something like that. It's a group of different MBA graduates who are...
So she'll be involved with the farms?
Yeah, that's the idea. That's definitely the idea, to come back and be involved. And the future generations, not the
I've got to say,
young person anymore.
I just recently hired a Gen Z at my shop, and I'm so impressed by what they can do. Like, they get a bad rap in the media, but like, these kids can just just hack into the Pentagon if you want them to. Like, they're so good with technology, and they learn really quick. And I think they went through a lot with COVID. So I'm pro Gen Z. I'm a Gen Z ally. Like, I'm really impressed.
I don't know if she's Gen Z. She was born in 96. But,
okay, so she's probably pardon the generalization, but in any case, the Gen Z, they're doing great.
Yeah, no, and the technology thing is something like super different for me too. Technology is evolving so quickly, and I sometimes just feel like, oh my God, like such a dunce. Like, how come some young people that work with me, like I have a new person that's working with us called Casey, and she is great at what she does too. And at all times, I'm like, Casey, can you help me with this? Or can you know, because I feel like, wow, technology has evolved very quickly and my brain has not evolved as quickly. So it's what it is. It's great. It's fine. Alexandra will do great here at UC Davis, and hopefully she'll come back and she'll be helping. She helped me with the auction this year. Our private auction is coming up next week on the 21st, and she helped me. It's called a Floral Experience this year. We try to do auctions with some sort of intentionality in terms of. Last year, for example, it was it was called, it was 20 years of Esmeralda Geisha, because it was 20-year anniversary, and it was about the fauna and the flora that surrounds our farms in the highlands of Panama. And this year it's about different floralities that we find in coffee. And so she's been working with me on that and choosing the coffees that we put into the auction along with my brother Daniel. We all of us help on that, doing the cupping and just having people all year, because people are visiting, not all year, I shouldn't say that, but January through, BOP is full every day, Monday through Friday. And if I allowed it, it would be Saturday and Sunday too, but I only do it Monday through Friday because it's exhausting. We have and I love having people come and visit and being able to show and cup with them, but it's a lot. It's changed so much in the last 20 years, how many people come to visit now and to cup the coffees in the farm and to buy directly at farm level. Just when I started, nobody did that. Like 3 people maybe came, and I started working for Esmeralda. I lived in Puerto Rico. So I would come like 3 times during the harvest. I would go back home because that's what I could do, but there weren't that many people coming through because we would just send out samples. Samples were like 1 pound back then, 450 grams. Times have just changed. Yeah. Things are different now. And a lot of people come by, a lot of people. We can have 3 groups with 5 people each, or 15, 20 people every day. It's a lot of visitors.
Speaking of visitors, I really want to come to Panama next year and make it like a documentary of sorts, going to a few different farms. So I'm trying to enlist Panama producers to let me do some filming and documentary style stuff. Can I come to Esmeralda and visit Neato King and Neato Queen?
Absolutely. We will welcome you with open arms. Just let us know when you're coming. Make sure that you come sometime during harvest, though, because that is the best time to come. Like, don't come now. Now it's just, there's nothing to see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my goal would be to come during the harvest and then to come back for the World of Coffee. That'll, of course, be at Panama.
Oh, right, in October. Yes.
So, come and visit you, Kai, Wilford, Justin, whoever will have me, really. So that'd be exceptional. But look, we've been going for an hour and 20 minutes nearabouts here, so we'll bring it to a close. What's something that you want that I haven't asked you about, but you would like to sort of finish on and let the people listening to this podcast know?
That's a good question. I didn't really think about that one before being here, but I think that just going forward, we have the coffee community has always been very inclusive and very helpful and worked with each other. And I think that I would love to see going forward a lot more producers or farmers and origins being outstanding, finding a way to stand out, because I know that it can be hard. And I think that we are going in that direction. Sorry for always going back to 2004, but that opened up a lot of space. 2004 was $21 a pound. All of a sudden, that price kept going up. That glass ceiling kept breaking. And then other coffees like varietals like Laurina are here because there was a space to differentiate that. And it's always good for the coffee industry to try and identify what they're looking for. Keep in mind what they really want. What do you want? What are you looking for? when you look for a good coffee for you, what makes you feel good about coffee? I can tell you what makes me feel good about coffee. I love the flavors, the attributes of good coffee. Most people know that Esmeralda really is about terroir. We've never gone very funky. We've never done super strange stuff. I identify very much with florality and with a clean cup and with a sweet, peachy or cherry, depending on what kind of, if it's a natural or a washed. I think the coffee industry just sort of has to figure out, what are we trying to achieve? What are we looking for? And push towards that. And just keep going at it. It's as long as you're consistent and keep going at it and try to build together. I think that's what I would like to come out of all this. Try and build together. Let's build each other up. Let's continue to walk and try and make this work all the way across this chain. I don't have any reason. I mean, I think that everybody in the coffee chain has something that they would love to achieve and that they are striving towards. And I don't see any reason to tear everybody, everybody should try and support each other along those lines. I'm glad that the C finally, became something that is not $1.50 or $1.30, which it was forever. I mean, those are things that, wow, finally, how did it take so long?
Yeah. And I think that the age of coffee being, below $2, let's just say, is over. And for good reason.
And one last thing, actually, while we're at this, it is so important also for the roasting side and the side where they're offering the coffee to try and educate the consumers on why it is important to pay a little bit more for a cup of coffee. I mean, education is, otherwise there's not going to be a lot of coffee left, but because if people love coffee, people are very emotionally attached to even their morning coffee. Some people cannot go at all without a morning coffee. And I think it's not on our side that we can do that, but it's on your side that you can educate people about how it can't be so cheap because it's just not sustainable for a whole large part of the industry. That education falls on people like you.
It's really interesting having you say that, because this is a challenge that I think there's one for me. It's the education is we need to take an approach where it's not being too lectury. I think we fall into the trap of, obviously it's important that we have this discussion, have this discourse, but I think being realistic about human behaviors and what people absorb and how they absorb it. So delivery is really kind of like something that I'm focusing on here. And I think just flat out lecturing people has not worked, because there's so many things going on in life these days that taking people's attention, and so I totally understand that. What's been successful for me is having an option where people can opt in. When we're talking about these things, having an option where people can opt in, and where I think it will go to the next level in the future is technology and virtual reality. And what do I mean by that? So say, for example, we've got all these notes on a bag, which for the most part, I think people just don't read. But, in the future, and taking into account, TikTok brain, having like a QR code on the back of the bag that goes to like a no longer than 30-second to a minute video that explains these things. And I think, we got to get away from the lecture and start focusing on delivery, because, going back to my sales brain, what actually works, what actually triggers, positive human reactions. And I think this is something that we all need to develop a better sort of pitch for, in a sense. And some people might disagree with me and think, that's a bit callous. You're a crypto bro or whatever. But I think we just got to be realistic about how we do this, because selling the message has never been more important, as you say. But I think our delivery now is what we need to sharpen and get better at. Agree? Disagree?
I agree that nobody likes to be lectured. I don't really fully understand how it is that people can't really, a lot of people can't live without coffee. That is something that is so ingrained in people's brains that it's hard for me to understand how you cannot, sell coffee at the price that you need to sell coffee and still to give back to the people who are producing this coffee and all the way so that people can actually live well. So I buy wine, for example, and I'm not going to look at the notes that much. And I am going to buy a varietal of, or a grape type. And it's not going to kill me. I'm not going to buy the cheapest. I'm not going to buy the most expensive by far. I'm going to sort of buy something there in between that's okay on my palate, that's not going to kill my pocket, but it's also not going to be... and if I'm going to get something super special, then that day I'll get something super special for some super special occasion. I don't understand why it's been so hard for coffee to do that and have just... that. I mean, I don't think this problem happens in an industry like wine, and I don't know why it happens in an industry like coffee.
I was having this discussion. I was asked to talk at a forum, I guess, last night for cafe owners, new cafe owners, and having only just recently started mine a year and a half ago. And we actually sell a lot of co-ferment coffee at our shop. And if I rewind a few years, I used to have a business called Sub-Zero Coffee, where we pretty much exclusively sold frozen coffee, lots of Esmeralda, and high-end coffees, and we did it on demand at pop-ups sort of thing. And for a customer to understand me, what like a coffee was, they kind of had to ask me 10 questions about those sorts of things. Whereas where I whack strawberry cheesecake on a bag, it's all self-explanatory.
Right.
And
I think that's perfectly fine. And I think that's great if you have those flavors that are so outstanding and people like it. And then that's what they should be drinking and that's what you should be buying. And it should all translate back into something where people are making a living okay. And I am all for finding ways to make it work so that people love what they're drinking without, like you say, without having to go out and be like lecturing them. Oh, you should be paying more because this and that, or that's not the way the market should work.
But the age of the common consumer's never been more informed than they are now. And I think the consumption of knowledge is just accelerating. And I was talking to Lance Hedrick about this. The amount of people that brew at home now that are just generally more interested is growing rapidly, to the point where a lot of home baristas now have more knowledge and skill than baristas that work in cafes. And that's not to insult people that work in cafes, but it's just like, this is what we're dealing with here. People are genuinely so interested. So it's coming. It's slow, but I think we're probably going to experience hockey stick like growth with this kind of stuff, where people are becoming informed. They see the $30,000 a kilo headline, and I think this will pique their interest. Like it just takes sometimes that little thing, that little spark, and they can become so interested after that.
I think that this type of year, and maybe last year included, which was $10,000 a kilo, let's not dismiss that. 10,000, or in the best of Panama was 10,013. And now it's 30,000, which is huge too. But both of those things are huge, and just that going in that direction is going to, again, make people think a little bit. They'll hear about it in the news, and they'll think, well, okay, maybe I need to be paying a little bit more for my coffee, for my morning coffee, my traditional morning coffee. So I hope so. Well, I hope it doesn't. It doesn't. I hope so, because. Well, otherwise people are in. There's a lot. Yeah, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go negative. It will, and I think we're looking right now at a before and after. So, let's see. I do think that this is.
I agree, and I think one thing the coffee industry needs to give itself credit for is how resilient it is at every step of the supply chain. So, producing, roasting, importing, baristas, all of that. Like, I thought this would be the year that so many cafes go bust in Australia, but they've all been so resilient and have held on even in economic pressures. And then with everything going on at the supply side, so at origin, the farmers just endure, and they like it constantly amazes me how resilient our industry is. So I just think, if you work in coffee, you've been through a few hard years, I see you. Like, give yourself a pat on the back, and you've done extremely well.
Yeah. Well, it's been 21 years since I've been in this, and this is an industry that I love to be in it. Well, you see me everywhere. Unfortunately, people get bored of seeing me because I go to way too many places probably, but it is an industry I love, and I love the coffee, and I do hope that we are just going in a good direction where things will get better for a lot of people that are perhaps not in a position where we want them, where we want everything to be. But I do think that good coffees are getting valued now. They're giving great value, and we have, there's an affordability. There's different. Let's say there's different coffees for whatever your wallet allows. There's a whole. Yeah. There's a whole array of different coffees out there, and there's all sorts of different new things like the co-fermentations or any of those, ways that people are trying to innovate or trying to get better or trying to find a way to stand out or to be able to unattach themselves from things like the sea, which fortunately in Panama, we were able to unattach ourselves. I'm going to say from Esmeralda point of view, it took many years after 2004. I was selling containers, the C price, at least until 2009. And we were negative back then, just FYI. I remember that the price that we were receiving was around $1.35, and it was $1.42 was our cost of production, without including anything like a salary for somebody who was selling it like me, or without even including our cost of putting that coffee at port. So I know I did live through that time. I just want to make that kind of clear too. I remember what it was like trying to negotiate with buyers, importers. Be like, come on, you're not even, this is not even covering. But you cannot negotiate from a place of not having any power, and that is unfortunately what it is about. If you don't have any way to sell that coffee, you're just going to have to sell it however you can. And that's what we come to.
Again, global demand's just never been higher. You got middle classes emerging in Asia that are just, their level of consumption is enormous. And the popularity of coffee is just growing everywhere. So I think, one day it will happen, detaching from the sea. I don't know when, but I think it's becoming, it'll probably become less and less relevant. Like you look at companies that negotiate externally of it anyway, like Luckin Coffee last year, they secured a lot of coffee, and it's not like they just, I think they got a volume discount because they purchased $2 billion worth of Brazilian coffee in one transaction. But it's like, I think people just maneuver around it, and
they also bought in Best of Panama. Did you see that, Luckin?
No. What did they get?
They got one of the lots. I can't remember, but it was bought by Echo Farm for Luckin Coffee. I can't remember. I think it was maybe Nugul.
Okay. Or maybe. Well, that'll be. Man,
I'm trying to remember exactly who it was. I don't remember who, but it was a good coffee, and it was a very good. Well, all those coffees are good coffees. But again, we're just. Luckin Coffee is people are trying to find a way to differentiate themselves and trying to find a way to make it all work in the market. And by the way, before we wrap this up, I love your energy. I love your memes. I love your podcasts, and I just want to say that here now because you're very entertaining. By the way, very much. So you are very welcome to come and visit us. It was really nice to have you. Oh, and also I don't know what I'm doing with this mic. You'll let me know, but you're gonna have plenty of
interviews.
But thank you so much for being so patient. On the one hand, we had so much stuff going on, and and for being so persistent. I'm glad we finally had the moment to do this.
No, well, I'm an idiot living out his dream because I've been podcasting for 6 years now in, under a few different titles. And I think I'm now at my most comfortable point and where I feel like I'm making an impact in the industry because it's, and I think one thing people can trust from this podcast is that I have a diverse range of opinions that come on, and it's not on me to, obviously I offer my opinion, but I'm not here, provided you're not being defamatory, I'm not going to censure people. I'm definitely committed to having a diverse array of opinions and, informing the coffee listener, telling the untold stories of coffee and giving it to people for free, because baristas around the world, it's not like they're rolling in cash. If all you need to listen to this podcast is the internet. And my commitment is to give it to people for free. And that's not criticizing people that put it on Patreon or whatever, but that's my motivation. And so, my goal is to get sponsors that pay for this and help me keep it sustainable and help me travel. And, I don't ever want baristas to have to pay. So that's my commitment to them. So on that note, if you could like this video, subscribe, and buy some Timor brew gear, timor.com. Timor is the only sponsor of this podcast right now. We're working on some more things, but brew gear. You could brew yourself an Esmeralda geisha. I'm going to be brewing some Esmeralda geisha on Timor gear later today. So if you want to support the channel, like, subscribe, buy some Timor stuff. Those guys are excellent because they support this and enable you to have this for free. So excellent segue, Rachel. Thank you for helping me with that. And by the way, you were mentioning the microphone. So I was trying to book you into a studio because I wanted this to be a really high quality, podcast in terms of audio and stuff like that. And you're in Davis, which isn't exactly San Francisco. So we couldn't book you into a studio, so I actually arranged to ship you a microphone, which is what you're recording off now. And that's the level we went to make this happen. 3:30 a.m. microphone. It's good. Yeah, I'm jacked up. I'm excited. Yeah.
It was definitely worth it. Definitely worth it.
But I'll hopefully see you at Host in Milan. And
yes.
Look, congratulations again to you and your family. Best of luck in the auction.
Thanks, Kirk. Yes.
Maybe you break your own record in like a week or so. Who knows? But that'll just about do it for today, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the recording. Stay on the line, Rachel. I'll just be 1 second.